Chapter 541. To see Dave. Lost for ideas on how to distract the swarm of ladies, Dominic decided to use the men as sacrificial lambs. So, I hear that there has been great progress while I was away. Have any of you fine ladies managed to lock down one of these young gentlemen? He asked, with a gesture to the training grounds. They really are a fine catch, aren't they? One of the ladies sighed, dreamily. Indeed. We're working hard to get the wedding venues ready for everyone. My apologies for the delays in the schedule. Oh, that's quite all right.
We've been talking about it as well.
You see, instead of holding mass weddings or multiple separate venues, we were thinking that many of us could arrange a morning wedding and then have 4 or 5 ceremonies an hour, so we all get our trip down the aisle, our moment to shine, and the guests only have to stay seated for the whole event. That's actually quite reasonable. A few hours of personalized ceremonies, then one big dinner and dance for the day's couples. I like it. In fact, I will talk to Princess Alexis about it as soon as I have finished checking in on the manor guard. There are trolls in recovery, and they deserve the best that I can give them. Dominic agreed. The ladies smiled, but didn't get the hint that he was trying to escape. Normally, there would be more of us out here to watch the morning practice. But now that the weddings are getting close, many have shut themselves in. Melissa informed him, with a chin gesture towards Abe, who was mostly distracted from training watching her. I can see how that could be problematic. Even if they're not active soldiers, I might have to remind them that they can take a break from their training roster to spend some time with their wives-to-be. Melissa giggled politely. Oh, that's half the reason that they're training. If they had nothing to do, but let us tease them all day, my potato isn't the only one that would end up with theirs arriving sooner than expected. You keep that up, and I'm going to have to alter his personal heraldry. Dominic joked. Oh, that's a wonderful idea. He's a proper nobleman now. He can have personal heraldry. Perhaps there is a way to work the potato into the design for his shield. You know, if anyone should be called Potato, it's likely you. You do have that sort of aura about you. One of the girls snapped in a snarky tone. Are you calling me fat? Dominic stepped between them. I think that it's a lovely pet name. Now, why don't we stop the gents a bit early? They look like they need a drink, all glistening and sweaty in the early morning sun. Fahad shook his head in dismay at the hungry looks that the ladies were giving the soldiers. If he didn't know better, he would think that they skipped breakfast. The ladies began to rush over as the men took a break, and Dominic made his escape with Prince Fahad. That wasn't bad. Most noblemen wouldn't have thought to send them after their menfolk. Mostly they give polite non-answers until the ladies give up. Dominic sighed. I saw enough of that at the royal events in the capital during the short time that I was there. There has to be a better method that doesn't involve simply telling them to go away. There isn't. That's why they're so persistent. They're hoping to wear you down enough that you give them something to make them quit asking. Just a bit of gossip is usually enough to keep them going all day. Dominic winked at the crown prince. And if I told them what actually happened, do you think that they would give up so easily? Of course. They don't have the stomach for that sort of thing. The lads, on the other hand, won't be turned away so easily. Most of them have already seen me in combat. They're definitely not going to be easy to skip the details with. Dominic agreed. Ingrid was standing guard at the door, smoking a cigar, when Dominic arrived. How are the boys doing? He asked. Not too bad. You've come to check on the injured ones? They're getting stir-crazy stuck in bed, but nothing to be done about it. Even with the healers, they've got a long process ahead of them. But they're in decent spirits. John, the sheep herder, brought over some fresh cheese for Larry to put in the stew. Oh, it's a good day to be a troll. Ingrid patted him hard on the head.
Yep.
Now go say hello before they start shouting. Dominic heard the trolls laughing from their beds as he entered, and the muffled admonishments of the healers that were there with them. Hey boss, that was good armor that you found for us. Dave greeted him as Dominic came to stand beside the bed. Good, but not perfect. I will try to find some that's even better. Now, I'm told that you'll be in bed for some time, so I came to thank you for the good work. Your shields kept the blast off me long enough for me to get through the portal. Thanks to your hard work and sacrifice, I managed to get all the bad guys who dared to attack us. Dave smiled, his face already fully repaired. The Tryon lady showed us the video already. It was a good fight, much bashing and booms and claws and swords. The hill of bodies was impressive. They will remember that one. Trust the old techno witch to find a way to show the trolls the scrying video before Dominic even got a chance to come say hello. Well, your day is really looking up. You got to watch a video, and there is cheese in the stew tonight. Dave rumbled with laughter. The sneaky John is a good herder. The cheese that he makes is the best stuff. Chapter 542. A pleasant surprise. Dominic sensed movement and turned to see one of the veiled maids entering the room. Did something happen, or are you here to drag me back to official duties? He asked. Both. Dominic sighed. What went wrong? Nothing wrong. The airship is back with another load, and I am informed that you will want to be there when it lands. Then, Her Highness has asked that I return you to your office, as she has no intentions of doing more of your paperwork. Fahad and Dave both laughed at the expression on Dominic's face. All right, let's go to the airship docks first. How has the new design been doing? It's got every nobleman and member of the Merchants Guild drooling over it. They've done 2 round trips a day since they got airborne, and they've tweaked the spells to improve mana efficiency, even at full load. You can ask them about the technical details the next time you are free.
Meaning, not right now.
Or today at all. Dominic waved goodbye to Dave, and Fahad gave him a sloppy salute as he headed for the training grounds. Dominic looked off into the distance and sighed as he realized he would be jogging over to the airstrip again. We've got to do something about this travel time.
He realized.
I am told that the techno-wizards are working on a transit bus for the city. It's based on a light transport vehicle with an extended rear seating area, but it should be perfect for the city. However, you shouldn't have to run around for too much longer. Or you can take the truck. There is one parked here that belongs to the duchy. Dominic shook his head. I've got more than enough enhancement to get over there as fast as hopping in the truck. As long as you can keep up, we're fine. The maid nodded. We've been working on our enhancement spell gems. I might not be as fast as you are, but I suspect that you don't intend to sprint. They joked as they made their way through the city, and Dominic waved periodically when someone looked his way. They could all see that he was in a rush to get somewhere, so nobody tried to stop him. The airship was just tying down at the cargo docks when he arrived, and Dominic skidded to a stop, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The airship was full of goats. Not just one layer, someone had built a second cargo level so they could load even more goats inside. It was absolute chaos. Boys, where did you get all these? And where is the farmer? He called as the dwarves tried to keep the animals under control. Farmer's dead. Was poisoned when we met him, but didn't say anything until after we had loaded. Where the hell is Dave? That was their only hope at this point. If there was anyone who could keep a load of goats under control, it was the mountain trolls. The Daves on bodyguard duty waved as they ran over, and began shouting in Trollish for the goats to behave and start making their way toward them. To the shock of everyone who did not know Dave, the animals instantly behaved, and began to form 2 orderly lines out of the cargo hold of the aircraft. I swear, it's got to be a form of magic, but the trolls swear that it's just a natural understanding. The real question is, where are they planning to take all those goats? We lost the goat herder on the way here. We didn't have a spell strong enough to deal with the toxin that he was exposed to. So, they're going to have to find somewhere for them. Gully, the airship team leader announced. Give them to someone? Oh, that's now how it works at all. Dave looks like he's taking them to an open field on the other side of the manor compound so that he can keep them for himself. You brought him goats, and he has taken that as a sign that they're a gift. The dwarf laughed at Dominic's consoling tone. Better than leaving them in my airship. Do you know how long it's going to take me to clean all that? But we've got something else that we thought you would like to see. That's why we called you out. The dwarves cleared the racking that had been assembled for the goats and opened a wall to reveal the rear cargo area, which contained a large array of household supplies. Presumably, they were from the farmer, but what they revealed next brought a smile to Dominic's face. For mechanical donkeys and a mechanical warhorse, complete with battle armor painted in the livery of the Dago's royal family. Now, it's going to need a bit of paint before we let anyone else see it, but I thought that you might appreciate a proper ride of your own.
Gully explained.
Dominic stepped up to the mechanical warhorse and placed a hand on the construct's neck. It was in what most would call idle mode at the moment. Its bonded operator had died, and like a bonded Magitech item, it needed to be reset so that it could be used again. Well, at least we won't need to shatter the spells to use it. The old operator is dead. The dwarf nodded. Killed during the fighting outside Kainwen. His horse continued to the next waypoint, which was the farmer's house, as he used to run a highway in. So he brought it with him, looking to trade it for land. But now that he's gone, I suppose it's yours for the taking. I suppose that it is. Does he have any next of kin? None left. They all went to the city a few weeks ago, looking for work. They would have been there when the flooding started, as the old man waited until the waters were at his doorstep before running off with the herd. All right then. We will get him a proper burial, and I will make a note of the debt in the ledger. If someone comes to claim it with proof of identity, I will pay them for the horse. Chapter 543. Prototype sold. The warhorse was going to be a lovely addition to the manor, and Dominic could use it to get around in style, without needing to run all over town anymore. For the next few minutes, he focused on clearing the old links and realigning them to himself so that the horse would properly obey his commands and not simply follow when ordered, as it would for a stable hand. Then the ride was his own personal warhorse. You know that your wife is going to find a way to steal that from you, right? Gully joked as Dominic finished bonding the horse to him. That's fine. I will find her another one and customize the exterior for her. That will make her much happier than a repainted Dago's warhorse. Really, we should buy a whole bunch of them for the barons and knights, as they were all trained as cavalry. But that is expensive, and we're spending everything on renovations to the city. That made the dwarves laugh. They were spending far less than any other city on renovations, as the infrastructure team was doing most of the work, and they were paid directly by the king. Even if Dominic was topping off their wages with bonuses. Talk to the merchants, they can arrange for a whole new set. If the princess is one, then her guards need them as well. Then, after the guards have them, we will start needing them for the delivery teams, so they don't need to use a tractor to pull wagons of supplies. Dominic nodded at the mechanical mules. Those should do just fine for pulling delivery wagons. Even the palace uses them to deliver supplies to the troops. Good point. I was thinking about how they're so useful in the fields, but I forgot that they are also very useful for deliveries, as they never get tired. You're likely going to need more tractors, too. Fortunately, we have that covered. The carriage maker has started making Magitech tractors, and they've moved to a larger warehouse to use as a factory. It was the merchant's idea, in case a steam tractor was too damaged to be quickly repaired, and the merchant in charge of the caravan had the money. But it will also do very well to make the smaller tractors for use in individual fields. Pops has started making a lot of implements on top of his usual tools, so they'll have something to pull behind the tractors, and as it happens, the small ones are surprisingly affordable to make, now that we've managed to get nearly everyone Magitech orbs for materials creation. The only issue I see is that so many of them transmute clay, and not just any sort of earth. If we start running low on clay, we could be in trouble. We're also using it for the airship materials, and those definitely need the best quality clay. But I will figure something out. Well, there is plenty of clay-based soil in the region. I'm sure that they can come up with another clay pit somewhere that's not suitable for farming. At least it's just the products and not the buildings that need it. Being able to just construct buildings like this is a real cheat. I don't think I've ever heard of a city going up this fast before. We might feel overcrowded right now, but the lads have heard that there are other specialists just waiting for somewhere to settle before they set up shop. Not all of them want to be in the city. I suspect that they're looking to be the personal artisan for one of the barons. It's great job security to do it that way, and they don't compete directly with the shops in the city. It will also spread out the wealth some. Gully agreed. The last of the goods from the airship were moved to a warehouse, where Dominic was certain they would be claimed to replace damaged items in a barony or a knightly estate. Then, a pressure washer was brought to clean out the bedding and droppings from the goats, so the airship could be deployed again. You've got this down to a science. I will leave you to your work. Just let me know when you want to turn this over to the guild, who has already offered to purchase it. Once they take over, you can work on the next one with any refinements that you might want to make. Gully laughed. With the changes we've made to this one, I'm not sure that the next one needs to be different. We're averaging well over 100 kilometers an hour in the air with only the steam turbines. If we add wind magic to the mix, we can push that closer to 150. That's more than enough. By air, it's only about 1,600 kilometers to Signia City. That's under one day. We might not be able to make a round trip in a day, but we can load in the morning, unload at night, and repeat it the next day, with only a minimal loss of sleep. We've altered the crew section of this cargo layout to have 6 rack-style bunks in it, so everyone who is not actively on duty can sleep. That lets us run continually, and we've fitted floodlights for landing and loading. Truly an all-hours vessel. Now, if these insane storm winds will calm down, we should be ready to go. The only things we can't properly handle are winds over 60 kilometers an hour, as it's impossible to hold course, or lightning. For some reason, the Magitech turbines seem to attract it, and even flying near a storm will generate enough static that your hair will begin to stand on end. As they were talking, a finely dressed man with a growing belly and multiple gold chains around his neck made his way over. Did I hear right? This one is nearly finished initial testing and ready for sale? Dominic nodded. It's already been sold to the guild. It's just waiting on delivery, as this is the prototype and we don't want to deliver an airship with issues. The merchant smiled. Oh, I'm well aware. We're all eagerly awaiting the day that we can get our hands on this new style airship. There is a 5-point supply run that we would like to put it on. Oh. Westover to Witheaton and Axbridge, then Mitfield City to Signia City, and finally Northinta in West Kyria before returning to Westover. With its speed, the only leg of that which is more than a day is Witheaton to Mitfield. But that is also a route that is horribly underserved, as there are so many cities in between. If they went overland and crossed western Stantia province, there were at least 6 major cities along the road between the two capitals. By the time that they got from one to the other, their entire cargo was likely to have been replaced at least once. Dominic turned to the dwarves, who nodded in agreement. All right, I think that we have tested enough, and the major bugs have been worked out. Gully, have you trained a technician to go with the airship? Of course. The guild sent one of their lads along with us every day. He's got a good grasp of it, and he was already a journeyman techno-wizard. Chapter 544. Contrition. The merchant sent a message, and a few minutes later, Rill came over with a storage cube in his hand. This should cover the payment that you requested for the initial ship. I will keep up with Gully to see when we can expect another, as we have other routes that we would like to service, including a far northeastern route and a southeastern coastal route. Gully smiled. Happy to take your money. We will get right on it and build the next one just the way that this one is right now, so you can start sending another airship tech along on the route to learn the particulars of the new airship designs. Everyone split up and Dominic mounted his new horse, then whistled for the mechanical mules to follow him before reaching down to help the veiled maid up. I suppose that it's time to get back to work. I've done the essential parts here. Behind her veil, the maid laughed. You make it sound like a bit more paperwork is the end of the world. True, it's really not. I just despise doing it. Remind me again why I agreed to this. Paladin boobs, my lord. Right, that was it. The pair laughed as the horse walked through the streets, catching the attention of everyone they rode by. The Dago's royal family emblem was quite distinctive, and even with his horns showing, it still took everyone a second to realize who was on the horse and relax. Dominic helped the maid down at the gate, then slid down beside her, so the stable hand could take the horse away. Take it to the forge after it's cleaned up. I am going to put a fresh coat of enamel on it, he instructed. Of course, Your Grace. We do have artisans who can do that for you if you would like, the stable hand asked. Oh, the debutantes have been looking for an excuse to show off their artistic skills. The young man, the son of a farmer, joked. Actually, that's not a bad idea. If we coat it with a hard enamel, it should be durable enough. Where is that made? Behind me. Can you ask that the offer to repaint the warhorse to be suitable for use by the Duke of Westover is open to anyone with painting skills? I will pay them, or we can offer a reward of some sort. The maid bowed. I will see that it is done. Princess Poppy would be perfect to arrange it. That way it sounds like a gift to you, as host, and not a commission, which might bring about jokes of being common laborers. Thank you for understanding women better than I do. Dave also understands women better than you do. Go away, I will get my paperwork finished. Dominic slowly made his way back toward the house, then stopped as a man came running around the corner, with Dave right behind him. Your Grace, please wait. He was shouting as he ran. The man fell to his knees in front of Dominic and bowed flat with the ground, holding something out in front of him. Your Grace, please, a chance to explain? He begged. Go ahead. I have no idea what you've done yet, so say your piece. Dominic motioned for Dave to wait behind the man, far enough back that he wouldn't feel like he was towering over him, but close enough to smash him with a club if needed. The man continued to hold out the object. It's not like that, Your Grace. I simply opened my portal on the wrong side of the house. I thought that the entrance was on the other side, and ended up in the garden. He cleared his throat and calmed a bit of his panic, which seemed to stem from his imminent death by a spiked club. Lord Dominic, I was sent to make peace with the Westover Duchy. Dominic frowned. And who do you represent that you believe that there is a chance for peace? I only recall the duchy having one perpetual blood feud. The man blanched, then nodded. On behalf of the Wesselby village and Dagos, I have come to publicly renounce our alliance with the Northern Lords and our role in the rebellion against the rightful King of Dagos. And what makes you think that you should bring this to me instead of the King of Dagos? Would that not be the logical spot to declare your allegiance? But you are his enforcer, are you not? I mean, after the other day, 10,000 dead in 4 hours. What could that be if not an object lesson in loyalty to the throne? Dave rumbled with laughter. Even a simple-minded troll knew that Dominic had smashed their people simply because he was angry and they were in the way. Well, when you put it that way, I can see why you thought that it was personal. I assume that you have brought me a token of your sincerity. The mage nodded. Yes, Your Grace. This is one of the royal clone orbs. The clone has been destroyed now, and it is inert. No longer does Wesselby village harbor a false copy of the traitor prince. A clone orb? Dominic knew that someone had made puppets that closely imitated Prince Kaizan, but he had thought that it was a grand spell by the Archmage supporting him. Now he had proof that it was actually a combination of grand magic and magitech. Dominic took the orb and examined it for a second before continuing his questioning. How many more of these orbs exist? Just one. The orb in Helster was still active when ours was destroyed. All of the others were lost during the storm, and the spell indicated that they had all gone offline permanently. So, there's still a fake prince out there? That means the rebellion isn't over yet. As long as there are still cities rallying to his cause, Stantia Province can't call itself safe from the Dagos rebels. They have attacked us too many times and in too many ways to call it finished at this point. However, I will accept your contrition. Now, come with me, and we can discuss how to present this to your king. Chapter 545. What to choose. Dominic led the new arrival to his office, where he found that there was already a crowd waiting for him. All the princes were waiting in chairs along one wall, and Alexis was at his desk with a scowl on her face. Prince George, it's good to see you again. I had thought that the ladies had completely overwhelmed you. Prince Fahad, welcome back. Prince Alex, this should be of great interest to you. Then he turned to Alexis. My lovely wife, how kind of you to keep my chair warm while I was out. This fine gentleman has come to apologize for the city of Wesselby's role in the rebellion and to ask our assistance in properly conveying that to the King of Dagos. And why might he have come to you before going to his own king? Alexis asked, not trusting Dominic's words. I may or may not have killed a large number of people in the city during my most recent hunt for war criminals. The man nodded solemnly, and Alexis turned her attention to him. Did he? Yes, Your Highness. Well over 10,000 in total. You see, what happened was... Everyone listened quietly as the mage explained the situation and how they had been pressured by their noble to join the cause, then fed false information that he had only realized was false after the storm had nearly destroyed everything and he had disobeyed orders. That was when he had traveled into Skipple to see old friends and learn the truth of things. Well, I at least understand where he's coming from. They were deceived, even if they should have known better. Since when were the Dagos royals so friendly with mages? And why wouldn't they let you talk to anyone outside your region if they were actually on the right side? It should have been obvious that you were being scammed. Prince Alex noted. The mage nodded. They were never friendly to us, but they saw the need to have mages around. All the nobles, and especially the royals, were terrified of the wave-mate sorcerers turning on them and trying to take back their nation before taking over large parts of Dagos. The fear seemed unjustified, given how fast their nation fell the first time, but it was such an ingrained fear that we all assumed that the nobles knew something that we didn't. Alex smiled at his sister, and Alexis winked at him. I would say that much was true. They definitely knew something that you didn't. The Dragon King chose not to fight back because he knew that it would turn all the human nations against his people. But most of the sorcerer nobles who survived the first few days fled during the attack, and were replaced by Dagos nobles. That was why they were terrified. Duke Westover, with just 50 trolls, could take any city in the north of Dagos. If 50 or 100 sorcerer lords returned to wavemates and launched coordinated attacks on Dagos, not even the Signia armies already stationed there would be likely to save them from the wrath of their returned enemies. The second prince agreed. Prince George Mitfield cleared his throat. That may be true, but the most urgent part of his arrival here should be finding a way to introduce the matter at court in Albrols without having him executed as a traitor. Prince Fahad drummed his fingers on the desk, and Dominic led the mage to an empty seat in the corner of the room. The man looked utterly terrified by his current company, royals from 3 different nations, plus the Duke of Westover. But he was determined that he was not going to let another tragedy befall his city. Wesselby was only 30,000 people to begin with, and Dominic had killed nearly every man between 15 and 40 years old. They couldn't take any more punishment. The city had blessedly avoided the fate of being flooded the way that the cities north of it had, but it was still a coastal city, and it had taken extensive damage from the storm. Now that they had no men left to do the rebuilding, as they had all been conscripted into the army, then annihilated in an afternoon, it was up to him and the other old men to find a way to save who was left. What if we have one of the princes accompany him to court in Albrols? That should at least get him through the door and buy him time to speak before the king makes a decision. The information that the last clone of Prince Kaizan is based in Helster might be valuable enough information to buy his life, and that of his village. Does anyone know how large Helster is? We might be able to arrange something to go get that last clone orb. Dominic suggested. The mage shuddered, and Alexis rolled her eyes. Dominic wasn't actually planning on wiping out the whole city of Helster to find the orb.
Probably.
If he was left to do the planning, it would likely involve a cavalry regiment with mortars and an airship bombardment fleet. So, it would likely destroy a large part of the city if they didn't turn over the orb and their clone of the prince. The more concerning part was that it was just a clone, and they likely thought that it was the real prince. Nobody knew where the original was, or what had happened to him. Someone obviously had him near them long enough to make many of these orbs, and they were based on his personality, but she didn't know what sort of magic had been used. If it was blood magic, as they had seen in use elsewhere during the battles, there might not even be an original Prince Kaizan left, just a small fragment of his soul stored in the last active orb. And that would be a tragedy for everyone looking to see justice done in Dagos. Chapter 546. The Right Contacts. Prince Fahad took out a sheet of paper and began to write. I will prepare an introduction for the King of Albrols. Obviously, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to show up unannounced, but it shouldn't be difficult to arrange for him to send an official invitation to court. Give it a day or two, and I should be ready to take our repentant mage to Albrols, and perhaps we can get things sorted out fast enough to save Wesselby, he decided. Save Wesselby? Dominic asked. With no working-age men left, just a bunch of seniors to protect the women and children, how long do you think that they will be able to hold off bandits, refugees, and pirates? The city is all but doomed if nobody sends a large military force there to secure it, and it will be a matter of weeks, if not days, before it is too late for them. Everyone turned to stare at Dominic. What? It's not my fault that all their men were soldiers. The mage just shuddered at the memory of Dominic's attack on the city before he raised his hand. Highness, perhaps this might help? I have the former lord's official seal, as well as a signed statement from the current administrator. Who is in charge of the city now, and what is his noble rank? The administrator. Third son of the brother of the Earl of Bamberbury royal estates. Everyone with a title or a direct claim to one was in the Lord's house for dinner when Duke Westover arrived. The damned fool mage who let him in opened a portal into the dining room, trying to escape from wherever he had been, and that let Duke Westover through. Dominic smiled, and the mage cringed. There's no need to traumatize the man further. I understand now why there is no titled noble in charge of the city, and why your military response was so dismal. I would assume that the senior command of the military were all in that room. Yes, Highness. As I understand it, Duke Westover threw an explosive through before he arrived, and they didn't even have a chance to raise defensive barriers. How many damned mortars do you carry around? Prince Alex demanded, staring at Dominic with great concern. On a good day, about 1,000? I'm still restocking, as I managed to use every one of them that day, to the point that I ended up using the launcher as a club after I ran out of ammunition. The prince sighed in dismay. That's a bit excessive. You have perfectly good offensive magic. Oh, I used that too. But you can throw explosives with both hands while still casting fireball. The mage nodded. I can confirm, the Duke can indeed accomplish that feat. And yet, you survived? The mage simply shrugged. What can I say? I'm loyal, but not that loyal. When he killed the entire leadership of the city, I went home to protect my family. The royals smiled, and Prince George patted him on the shoulder. That might be the smartest thing that you've ever done. Let the soldiers deal with matters of war, and keep your nose in your own business. I will send a letter of reference as well. That should keep them from causing Prince Fahad any undue trouble. Midfield isn't a bordering nation now that Signia controls Stantia province, so there is little that we would gain from conspiring against Dagos. Prince Alex took out a small Magitech device that looked like a typewriter. I will send the messages. I have a direct link to the king. Fahad rolled his eyes. You could have started with that. Send the message, and we will try to get this sorted in the morning. That's better than sending messengers back and forth. That would be one of the great advantages of the new airships. They covered so much ground that they could run a private letter from Westover to Albrolls in a single day. That was better than anything short of magical transmission, and it could be a physical message, which was better than a second-hand message, or sending someone through a portal, which posed a security risk. Now that the idea was in Dominic's mind, he realized that they really did need to do something about that vulnerability. Anyone could open a portal in the vicinity of the manor, and while the number of mages who could open a portal were limited, if you counted it on a continental scale, the number was in the hundreds or even thousands. They definitely needed a protective item to limit portal activation near the manor. No matter how inconvenient it would be for some of them. Duke Westover, your eyes are glowing. The mage whispered, clearly terrified. Sorry, I was just thinking about some security concerns in the duchy. Forgive my lapse in attention. We need to talk about that before I leave. Prince Fahad signed, using the Merchants Guild hand language. Dominic nodded, and Prince Alex finished sending off his message. The typewriter immediately spit out another few lines, and the second prince smiled. All right, he has agreed to meet our guest in the morning. You may go tonight, or before court starts. He says to arrive at the palace gates, not inside the walls. They have restrictions set. Dominic knew that it was a good idea. He couldn't believe that he hadn't thought of it before. He would have to talk to Amy and have the sect work with the techno-wizards to make something. In that case, we will head out right away. The sooner we get everything sorted, the faster I can return. I just need someone who can open a portal to come with me so I can return easily. I will arrange for someone. Dominic agreed. Amy would have to suffer for an evening. But while she was there, she could gather some intelligence for him about how things were really going after the storm had passed over Albrolls. Chapter 547. Job History. Dominic had the maids call Amy into the room and quickly brought her up to speed on what was happening. All right, that sounds simple enough. I do recommend that we put a mana restriction strap on our guest, though. Not because I intend to detain him, but so that everyone knows that he's not a suicide troop sent by the rebels. For a moment the mage looked offended, then he shrugged and nodded. I hate that I can't deny that it is the sort of tactic that the army would have ordered us to use if they were still in power. There were so many instances of them sacrificing troops for little to no benefit just to make a point. So, I won't fight against having my mana restrained, and the prince may hold my storage ring if he wishes. Amy held out her hand. I know the trick to look inside if I'm holding it, so I can inspect it for hazardous materials. I will hold on to it until we arrive, just to be sure that there isn't anything I might have missed, like a weapon that could be triggered by removing it from the storage. She would put it in a barrier so that nothing could come in or out of it, which was just as effective as leaving it somewhere that the bonded user could not activate it. With the barrier tight to the surface, even if they wanted to trigger a magical effect, they were unable to remove it from storage. The only downside to this technique is that you needed access to all sides of the item, so if it was being worn, you couldn't cut someone off from their supplies. Amy handed him the strap, and he handed her his storage ring, which the mage quickly inspected using an item from her storage. Nothing out of the ordinary. We're good to go if you are? She announced, asking Prince Fahad for clearance. Yes, let's get it over with. With the information that he has, I suspect that we might not have to wait for tomorrow to get to see the king. Finding the last clones of the traitor prince is essential to ending the war. Once they're gone, the scryers should be able to find the real one. Dominic nodded. I just hope that things go well for you. The city is large, but it's still built along the river, and the amount of flooding that Kainwen saw should mean that there will be quite a bit at Albrol's as well. Prince Fahad nodded. I suspect that there won't be a lower city anymore. That might be why they asked us to come to the palace gates. It's high ground, but Albrol's has a diversion canal that was originally intended to serve as a moat, but will also double the flow capacity of the river near the city. That will eliminate some of the flooding, but we will have to see how much. Amy opened the portal, then turned it so that everyone could look out over the city to see that only the lowest regions of Albrol's were fully flooded. There was standing water in the streets, but from the look of things, most of the city had survived. That was better than expected. The palace guard was immediately at attention when the portal opened, and then rigidly upright when Prince Fahad called his personal guard to accompany him. 20 men was more of a token force than a show of force. But with Amy there, Dominic and Fahad were both reasonably certain that he would be safe. Besides, he was invited as an envoy from Axbridge at his request. If anything happened to him, the war would quickly involve every nation allied with Axbridge. Still, Dominic was concerned about his safety. At least he had Amy with him. Once the portal was closed, she moved closer to whisper to the prince. Don't worry, I will look out for you while you're here. I might not look like much, but I'm a very capable bodyguard. Fahad smiled. Did you know that there is a wager going on what species your non-human lineage is? Amy shrugged. There always is, but they never get it right. Most of them aren't even close. But if everyone knew, where would the fun be? They already know all the spells that I specialize in, and most of them are familiar with my combat styles if they're in the sect. So, having them know my last few hidden cards would just ruin the mystery. Fahad shook his head. Some people love to speculate, especially noble investigators. Don't worry, I won't let the Dagos nobles know that you've been here before. Amy was shocked. She didn't know that the prince's people knew that much about her already. Most of her mission records should be confidential within the sect, so it would have had to have come from someone who had either commissioned her or who had identified her while she was on a mission. And that seemed highly unlikely. She made very sure that nobody ever identified her when she was on a mission, and most of her jobs for the sect were not the sort that left witnesses to stand trial or give reports. Perhaps it was one of the techno-witches? They always seemed to know things. Though, being a prince, he might have had access to a reliable scryer who could see through her stealth and disguise spells. It wasn't completely impossible that someone working for the royal family could have found her. That was why you had to be picky about your targets. One of the royal guards moved closer to join the conversation as they approached the palace guards. Her past isn't going to be a problem, is it? Amy shook her head. No, I was just here to clear up a child trafficking ring. Nobody would admit to being associated with the men who went missing, so they're not going to call me out, even if they did hold a grudge against me. Chapter 548. Finally found. The palace guard saluted as the group came to a stop. Your Highness, The king has sent word that he is expecting you and your guests. Please follow us into the palace, and don't mind the mess. A large portion of the city flooded, but we've managed to drain it fairly well, and Albrol's was designed with floodwaters in mind. There are no basements here to hold on to stagnant water, and the main floors are mostly elevated, so the majority of the city is already back to work again. Prince Fahad simply nodded and followed behind them as they entered the Albrol's palace. They didn't have to go far. King Gustav, formerly the Viscount Boscombe, was waiting in the lounge for them. Crown Prince Fahad, welcome to Dagos. Follow me, please. I am told that you have obtained valuable information. Might I assume that this is the source? Fahad turned and realized that the captured mage was still in his expected spot, in front of the guards. But Amy had vanished. How she had managed that while standing in front of an entire unit of royal guards was a mystery, but they should have seen her disappear. They just hadn't had a chance to say anything about it. In reality, when they stepped around the corner, she had simply stepped into an alcove and changed her appearance to that of a young girl wearing the uniform of a palace maid. Everyone had simply walked past her without question. She was still following behind them, carrying a tray of appetizers, the same as a half-dozen other maids. If anyone had noticed that there were more of them than there had been, or that one of the faces was unfamiliar, they didn't bother to overthink it. The commoners in the palace had changed so frequently lately, with the purges of traitors and then the mass exodus during the storm, that it wasn't unusual to not know someone. The royals entered an office, and Amy placed her tray on a cart, which she took from its handler, who gave her a relieved smile and ducked into an alcove to get away from the royals. Being directly in the king's line of sight was never a good thing for the maids. You couldn't be accused of messing up your job if nobody ever saw you doing it. The rest of the maids followed suit, carefully loading the cart, so it was only Amy that accompanied the group into the office. The palace guards locked the door behind them, leaving both sets of soldiers in the hall to guard the room. Only then did Prince Fahad notice that the maid with them was actually Amy. No wonder she was considered one of the top assassins of the Duskblade sect. If she had been here to kill them, they would have just locked her alone in the room with a king and a crown prince, based entirely on the uniform that she was wearing. He was going to have to seriously consider updating the security procedures when he got home.
All right, what do you have for me?
The message made it sound extremely urgent. King Gustav requested. This mage came to us, pleading for Duke Westover to have mercy on his people. He is from Wesselby, and they have recently broken from their alliance with the rebels. They wish to rejoin the Dagos kingdom, and he assures us that they have seen the errors of their ways. Fahad explained. Really now? The Lord Wesselby was never a fan of me, or of the royal family in general. He was one of the most adamant in favor of Prince Kaizan. The mage looked horrified at the memory of the past.
Speak.
Your Majesty, the Lord Wesselby is deceased, as are his sons, his grandsons, his nephews, and their sons. Really now? So, the people of Wesselby really did rise up against their lords? Not exactly. The Butcher of Westover paid us a visit during the storm and killed everyone of noble title, all the army officers, most of the soldiers, and a few others. Others? We believe that he might have targeted a number of men who were known to be particularly vocal about anti-sorcerer sentiments. The situation is unclear, as the death toll was over 10,000, but only a handful of civilians were killed. King Gustav nodded. More likely, someone had seen what was going on and took the opportunity to kill off a few more people that they believed deserved it. I have reports of his movements. Now, what are you hoping to gain from the crown with this sudden confession of loyalty? The mage bowed his head in shame. All of our young men were conscripted into the army, and now they are all dead. All of them. The entire town of Wesselby is 20,000 women, children, and senior citizens, with only a handful of working-age men left. We need support. Something. We're doing what we can, but the city mostly flooded during the storm, and while we have pressed retired tradesmen back into work, they can only do so much. Their bodies aren't up to the task. The king nodded. My people will have many more questions for you. However, I don't see it being an issue for Albrol's to send you a support unit to help stabilize the city. Prince Fahad nodded. I thought that might be the case. But there is one more fact that I believe is even more important. Kaizon has been using a Magitech object to create the clones of himself, and according to this survivor, there is only one more left. As of last tracking, it was in Helster. The rest were lost when the cities they were in succumbed to the storms. King Gustav smiled. A genuine smile that melted away the weight that taking the throne in the middle of a civil war had placed upon him. Finally, some good news. Once we can eliminate the last of the false prince's clones, the armies loyal to him may finally see sense and surrender before they are all dead. Chapter 549. North of the River. While Fahad was busy in Albrols, Dominic took the chance to catch up on paperwork, hoping to be done before dark so that he could finally get back to just maintenance levels of hand cramping. Admittedly, it was a lofty goal, going by the amount of paperwork on his desk. But it was a necessary one, as so much of the paperwork had to do with assigning lands to the new barons and knights. Alexis, before you run off, what do you think of starting the assignments north of the river and running outward? It will take us most of the way to the troll village, so we might be able to hire them to do border patrols once the barons get settled in. Alexis looked at the map that Dominic had unrolled, with one baron to every 10 knights, based on groups of 11 existing manor houses. It would give them all enough territory to call home, and they were already based on how much workable land existed. It was better than drawing arbitrary lines based on actual size, she thought. Why just the one side of the river? The other side is where we're expanding airship manufacturing as well as other dangerous factories. I don't want to put anyone too close to them, so I'm thinking that we put 2/3 north of the river and then the rest south. That will give us a coverage area like this. The question is how we assign it. Do we start closer and work outward? That doesn't seem optimal for many reasons, including the lack of common workers. But if we just let them pick the ones they like, who knows where we will have issues? There aren't really any surviving roads. They were cart paths to begin with, and they've all grown over, so we will have to do a huge amount of infrastructure improvement if we're going to link the houses that are being used for barony manors with real roads. The ones with black marks are the ones that the Adventurers Guild flagged as relatively safe to move into. One red line is heavily damaged or a battle site. The red X is uninhabitable. Alexis nodded. She had the same map. I think that should work. The manors don't actually have much variance in size. I've been following the notes on them, and they're all basically built for one large family with guest rooms. Half the size of what the manor in Westover was, roughly the same as what the first few barons moved into. It's almost like it was an unspoken rule not to go overboard with huge houses here. The real difference is some of them have walls or other defensive fortifications. If you mark them on the map, they can make a better choice. Just remember to outline the territory of each baron, so the knights from his unit or a friend group can move into his territory. It doesn't matter what house he picks within the zone, they're so close to the same. But knowing that they'll be under someone they know and trust will help the knights choose. So, we should push the barons' weddings to the front of the line? Alexis shook her head. No, just have them pick their lands first. They can get married when they are ready, with their friends and wives knowing where they're going after. All right, that should be easy enough. Do you want to help me with the outlines? I've got them marked with the help of the adventurers and Julio. But another set of eyes never hurts. Dominic pulled her down into his lap, and Alexis laughed at his blatantly transparent tactics. But she didn't get up. Surprisingly, they were actually getting work done sitting together, and before he knew it, Dominic had finished half the stack of paperwork, while the outlines on the map had been refined to functional territories that all had everything they needed for success. At least, minimal success. None of them lacked enough farmland, water access, or trees. Beyond that, there was no guarantee of how far they could take the territories that they were being given by the king. That was all up to them, and the people who moved in under them. Should we gather them to let them pick? We've got the map ready, and you're right that the knights will want to be near their old unit commanders. Dominic suggested. We can send the maids with news and have them all come to breakfast tomorrow morning with their prospective brides. I'm sure that some of the ladies will want to have input on the process. It's not a chance that any woman ever gets, so giving it to them should get the new barons off to a good start. Alexis offered. Dominic frowned. She had a point. Even she wasn't given a choice of where she was moving. He was given the Duchy of Westover, and they were expected to move there and develop it. There was no input on her part about where they were going unless it happened with the king before the fact. In their case, he didn't get a choice in the traditional sense, but he was being given back his childhood home. There was no reason for him to choose between locations. Only one was suitable. All right, we will make it a full event for breakfast. I will go warn Beth that we will have a full house with a celebration. And then I will be waiting for you in our room. Alexis agreed. She got up and opened the door, only to see a portal in the hallway and Amy with an amused look on her face. See, I told you that we shouldn't open it in the office. Princess, we finished the meetings early, and the king has detained the visitor for final questioning, while he sends troops to help stabilize the south half of the North Shore and the locations that took particularly heavy casualties during the storm. She explained. Prince Fahad and his guards stepped through behind her. As she said, we managed to get it all done without an overnight stay. Albrol's is in rough shape, but its flood mitigation held up, and they only suffered minor flooding. I will debrief you in the morning. Afternoon. We're going to let the barons pick lands in the morning. That will take up everything before lunch. Then I will put on my very best. This should be fun. Chapter 550. Baron's Breakfast. The next morning, Dominic opened his eyes to the strangest sight. Wings. Or one golden wing, wrapped around both himself and Alexis. That was new. Dominic flexed his wing, pulling his wife closer to him, and decided that this development was actually quite beneficial. It was an extra limb to cuddle with, and doubled as a blanket, as the wing was actually quite warm. A twitch informed him that the other one was extended straight behind him, and Dominic wondered if he should focus on transforming back. And why he had transformed in his sleep. That should likely be more concerning than it felt. But Dominic put that all aside, as they had breakfast guests this morning, and that meant that he only had 2 more minutes to. Dominic, put your wings away and give up on whatever you're thinking. It's time to get out of bed. I knew that I should have done it as soon as I thought of it. Alexis smiled, knowing that he couldn't see her face from his angle. Relax, there will be more chances. Now, we need to form a proper game plan for how we're going to arrange all the new barons. Do we go by their former military rankings and merits? They all hold the same rank now, and their titles were assigned in alphabetical order. Dominic focused on looking human and felt his body shift as the wings retracted into his back. It couldn't be called painful, but it was definitely a strange feeling to have his body alter itself that much. Far more disturbing than feeling claws or fangs retract. Dominic got up and saw the strange expression on the face of the maid who was waiting by the door. Good morning. Is the shower ready? Yes, Your Grace. Perhaps we could start forming a new morning protocol? Attempting to get Her Highness out of bed on time is becoming increasingly difficult when you get protective in your sleep. Dominic shrugged. There is a simple solution to this. We tried to wake you as well, but I didn't think it was appropriate to poke you when you were growling at me. Alexis laughed. Just wake him up first, he deserves it. Dominic placed his hands over his heart with an aggrieved expression. Even you, my dear wife? Did we not deserve just a bit more sleep? The maid laughed and activated the curtain pull to bathe the room in light. That works too. Now that they were up, both Dominic and Alexis got clean and dressed for a proper formal breakfast meeting, a precaution to ensure that the new barons didn't think they were taking this all too casually. It was a big day for the barons, as important as the day that they were given their title. Today, they would find out where their new home would be and what sort of land they would get. Only, they hadn't been told yet that they would actually get to pick, instead of having Dominic simply assign them a territory, as was common practice in more established regions, where it was likely that only 1 or 2 unclaimed holdings were available. Either because a noble family had been left without an heir, or had fallen from grace. Ready? Dominic asked with one final check of his outfit. As I will ever be. The barons are going to go crazy once they find out what we've got planned for them. Now, are we both on the same page with the plan for choosing names? Dominic smiled. 100%. Names on paper slips and a random draw. It's the most entertaining and fair way to do it. Any other way would leave at least 1 or 2 feeling that they had been screwed over by procedures. This way, All they could blame was their own rotten luck if they had to wait until last to pick. The barons were already gathered at the table by the time that they made it downstairs, sipping coffee and wondering what sort of day this was going to be. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to say thank you all for coming on such short notice. Second, we will begin breakfast by having everyone write their names on the cardstock that the maids are passing around. Once you have done that, fold it in half, and they will collect it. It will matter later.
Dominic began.
Brother, you can't do that to us. Teasing a man with an emergency meeting about land, then just leaving them hanging until the end of the meeting, simply cruel. Dominic shrugged. If we do it first, then everyone will be too excited to eat, and I know that Miss Beth has poured her heart into this morning's celebratory feast. The barons laughed as the food was brought out. They were all going to be too nervous to properly enjoy the meal anyhow. Seeing that everyone was only picking at their meals as they filled out the cards and handed them back to the maids, Dominic decided to get things moving. All right, as you're all clearly waiting for me to tell you, I thought that we would make the order a matter of luck. You're all barons, all raised on the same day. So I'm going to put the names in a bag and draw them. Then, on this map of territories, with the barony lands outlined, you will come and place a marker on your chosen estate. We will record them as you do, so no fear of errors later. Alexis laughed at the shocked silence that fell over the room. I thought that might be the response. You're all veterans. Every one of you has excellent luck to have made it this far. But we didn't want age or name to decide who had to wait until the very end. There are more than enough estates. Even once we are done, it won't be close to half the available territory. In fact, I expect that it will be closer to a quarter, unless some start picking the more remote northern grasslands, which are larger in space, lower in yield. She explained. They were also the furthest from Westover and the closest to Dagos. Not prime real estate by any means, even if one of the barons was a cattle rancher.